All right, we are live. What are we looking into today? Yesterday we found this beautiful quarterly, what do they call it? Quarterly report Q2 2025 by Lux Capital. It was amazing. It was amazing. It feels like this is what's happening now, right? Like everybody is focused on media. Everybody's focused on media because you want to do two things. You either want to give something very insightful or you want to give something very entertaining. And this started with A16Z going all in, where they hired Eric Tornberg from Turpentine Media. They hired him, and Eric is going all in. Like he is just like everything. He's just sharing all the past hits from Mark and Reason. All the posts are going up. All the tweets are going up. A lot of content is being created on podcasts. A lot of clips are being posted online. The entire video setup has been upgraded. There are like proper fancy film cameras in the studio over there in the office, and all they're doing now is just creating content. And they're pretty much like, hey, what's the best way that you will come with an insight? The best way that you will come with an insight is conversation. This is also we saw what was happening at. This is also something that we saw that was happening at Peter Thiel's, what was it called? Founders Fund, right? There's also something we saw happening at Founders Fund where, if we look into it, that what is the high leverage task that Peter Thiel is doing? So that is basically, first of all, hiring the smartest people that you could find as general partners or partners at Founders Fund, and then spending the time during the day, like spending that time with them and talking about their thesis, talking about their findings, and understanding like what are the things that they find interesting, and having this kind of debate, that sharpening each other's thesis. That what is the thesis about the world you have, what is the thesis about the industry you have right now, about people, about usage, about products, about where the industry is going, about AI. What is something that I don't know, what is something I can build upon, how can I refine your thesis where you might be going wrong, stuff like that. And you are constantly like with all the others really smart people who might be more technical, more design skill, whatever, more very deep knowledge about this one industry. And you can now sharpen your conviction, and that is the highest leverage task. And then you kind of build a thesis around it, and then you go and invest in companies. So that is something that used to happen behind the doors, but now what Eric is like, no, 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 put it online, have that podcast, and have that podcast recorded, and put your thesis out there, and have contact with reality. And that's how we'll get better and better with our thesis. We already have the name. A16Z is already a big name now. World is changing super fast, so you got to put your thesis out there, and we will get a lot of feedback on our thesis. We'll get a lot of user feedback on our thesis, market feedback on our thesis, and we will also become even more. We'll also become, even in this world where capital has become really cheap, where you can just raise capital from anyone. You can just get money from any angel. There are so many people with a lot of money. We still want to be a trusted partner where the best companies come to, because companies are still looking for really good partners. Yes, they can raise money from anyone, but they still want to raise money from people who give them more than just money. So this is the reason why A16Z focuses a lot on back office stuff. That, okay, we don't just give you money, but we also help you with legal stuff. We also help you with technical stuff, especially in crypto. Like I was on crypto, and in crypto specifically, they would be like, yeah, like we have built a team that is really technical, and we are learning. We have invested in a bunch of portfolio companies. We learn from one portfolio company, and then we give it to other. So it is like consulting business, but with a venture arm. That is really cool. Like I think just consulting today is becoming obsolete. I just met someone today who was in consulting and who was working in AI, and you can see like this work is slowly gonna go away because people don't like consultants. They ideally, but there's also a thing about consultants in big companies. In big companies, they would ideally hire consultants because they would be like, I want to make this decision, but I want to let people know that I'm doing this because KPMG told me. So if something goes wrong, I can blame on KPMG and fire you guys, and then do the next thing again, and do the next thing again. So that is something interesting. Somebody told me, I think it was Jan Romero on Farcoster who was sharing this thing, that the biggest reason why people hire McKinsey consultants is so that they can hedge, because they anyways want to make money. They anyways have the crazy idea how they can make more money. But what they want to do is they want to let people know that, oh no, McKinsey told us to do this thing, and because it has led to this bad decision, now okay, we'll fire McKinsey. That is something interesting. But anyways, let's go back. We retweeted this post, so we will find it easily. Also, I've just changed my bio now. I'm leading AI teams turn their products into everyday habits. And let's look into this. I already read a couple pages, so I was actually reading a couple more pages today. But this is very interesting. That's very interesting. All right, let's look at the last line. The wealthy have always understood that money's greatest luxury isn't what it can buy, but what it can bypass. The private jet that leapfrogs TSA lines, the concierge doctor who answers on the first ring, the Disney plaid vested guide who spirits you past the sweating masses. It's not mere snobbery that drives this parallel infrastructure of privilege. It's the recognition that friction is modernity's hidden tax. Friction is modernity's hidden tax, levied in time and aggravation. That's why the ultimate arbitrage lies in friction, owning the bottlenecks imposed by physics and funding the hacks that beat them. There's a paradox, though. The most elegant physical systems often depend on friction as their saving grace. Actually, this is the beautiful part. There's friction. There's another friction part that is beautiful. Let's see, where do we start? Yeah, I think. Do they start over there? OpenAI, Anthropic, and even XAI's Grok are all quietly erecting their own annotation foundries, atomizing every step in math and physics Olympiad proofs, because tomorrow's edge will be measured in insight per token, not teraflops per second. And this is very interesting because at the end of the day, everything that you do that has to lead to, is it leading to an insight that is helping a business make better decision? Is it improving lives? That's all that matters. It doesn't matter how many teraflops per second you have. And all these, this is a beautiful thing, right? There are people who are focused on building the technology, but then there are people who will be actually using the technology and using it for everyday habits or making real life decisions to improve their lives and the people they serve, their lives. So that is the flow that has to make sense. It doesn't matter how crazy of a technology you're building. That chain has to make sense. That is that product, is that technology actually helping you make better decisions in real life? If you're just like optimizing on numbers that, we went from 100 teraflops to 200 teraflops, is that actually making any difference? I don't know. So interesting. Multi-agent reinforcement learning verifiers now grade everything from courtroom pros to manufacturing workflows, turning the subjective into back-propagatable currency. This evolution from static data to agentic learning environments marks a critical shift in the directional arrow of future progress in AI. Together, AI's record-setting inference engine on NVIDIA's Blackwell. NVIDIA's Blackwell architecture is unmatched, offering engineers the fastest loop for learning and accelerating agent training. That speaks to Lux family company Cognition and its Devon coding agent, which is now the leading co-pilot for the best software engineers in the world. Devon's speed of development is only matched by Cognition's own rapid maturation. Their reconnaissance and rapid fielding of the windsurf team was a masterful move, making us even more bullish on their smartphones thinking and long-term trajectory. Sakana AI's rollout across 3 Japanese mega banks shows the leap from toy problems to high finance value as it models rapidly evolve, just as Sakana uses nature's evolutionary patterns to inspire its own research. Runway's sold out AI festival at Lincoln Center, exhibiting films streamed upon its own tech stack for generative video, proves that a prompt and its prompter can now walk the red carpet. A prompt and its prompter can now walk the red carpet. These are some beautiful sentences. Co-founder and partner Lux Capital, trustee SFI Science Santa Fe, founding chair C Prep Brooklyn, co-founder Carson Quinn and Bodhi with LT Wolf. Wait, I think co-founder, are they the kids' name? Carson Quinn and Bodhi. I think these are kids' name. This is also interesting, like when you get really prominent, when you kind of like, break through the ceilings and you break through the layers and you are like very at the top. Now you think about your kids, your future generations as you think about it as business. Everything is business now. Everything has to have a cadence. Everything has to run like a proper business. Everything has to run as if you are building a company over here. This one person, this one kid that we are focused on growing. That kid is gonna go do great things, and we want to lay the right foundations and everything. As these examples show, instead of just spending more on compute in the pursuit of even bigger models, there is arbitrage in transmuting the subjective into the scoreable to help models attend to verified truth. Everyday habits. The winners might not, everyday insights. The winners might not be. I'm actually thinking about, like, as I'm reading this, I'm thinking about, like, how can I update my bio, or how can I update my pitch? I help leading AI teams turn products into everyday habits, into actionable insights, turn models, turn compute into actionable insights. Turn their products into actionable insights, turn their models into whatever. Okay. There's arbitrage in transmuting the subjective into the scoreable to help models attend to verify truth. The winners might not be those with the most parameters, but those who architect new verification primitives and make legible areas currently invisible to AI. The friction frontier, investing in hard assets. Friction is the first villain of physics, the thief of efficiency that steals energy from every moving part, making our engines run hard and our transmissions grind. We spend fortunes on ball bearings and lubricants, on streamlining and smoothing, on fiber optic cables that carry light itself because electrons aren't fast enough. In war, friction kills. Every second of delay between order and execution measured in lives. Bro, beautiful. I want to know who wrote this. Josh Wolf. Amazing work. This is amazing. In war, friction kills. Every second of delay between order and execution measured in lives. The wealthy have always understood that money's greatest luxury isn't what it can buy, but what it can bypass. The private jet that leapfrogs TSA lines. The concierge doctor who answers on the first ring. The Disney plaid vested guide who spirits you past the sweating masses. It's not mere snobbery that drives this parallel infrastructure of privilege. It's the recognition that friction is modernity's hidden tax, levied in time and aggravation. That's why the ultimate arbitrage lies in friction, owning the bottlenecks imposed by physics and funding the hacks that beat them. Owning the bottlenecks imposed by physics and funding the hacks that beat them. There's a paradox though. The most elegant physical systems often depend on friction as their saving grace. Nuclear reactors use control rods to slow neutron flow. Nuclear reactors use control rods to slow neutron flow. Too little friction, Chernobyl burns. The right amount and cities glow with light. This is beautiful. This is beautiful. Every time I read like a sentence like that, I'm like, so beautiful, so beautiful. This is it. Like, some people just optimize on writing skills. That might be interesting. But the real thing is you need to be good at both. You need to be good at creating poetry, but you also need to have really deep understanding of the content. Because once you really deeply understand the content, because if you're just good at writing, what are you doing? How do you even, like, you need to have content and then make that into good writing and then make that into poetry. So you need to deeply experience or understand some content and then use your writing skills, your poetry skills to convey that message. So over here, this is a beautiful example of someone who understands the technology really well, who understands industry and the geopolitics of it really well, and now their writing skills are amazing. So now they are able to create this poetry. Look at this. Nuclear reactors use control rods to slow neutron flow. Too little friction and Chernobyl burns. The right amount and cities glow with light. Our neurons fire with built-in delays. Synaptic gaps that prevent our thoughts from becoming electrical storms of epileptic seizure. I think we found this quarterly newsletter yesterday where someone was just talking about M dash, and there was a high signal post that popped up on Perplexity. And look at it, where are we now? This is beautiful. Okay. I think I want to keep this thing where we are not rabbit holing ourselves into one topic just because I want to stick to that topic. I think being able to explore these beautiful things out there. I cannot just search from them. I cannot. I didn't even know that Lux Capital had someone who was writing these beautiful quarterly letters. I might have looked into Lux Capital once in their portfolio companies, but I wouldn't have found this writing. So, yeah, I think I won't. I won't. I don't know. I don't know what's the plan ahead, but we. I don't want to do that. I don't know. I don't want to do. I don't want. I don't want to rabbit hole ourselves into one topic. Rabbit hole the entire stream on one topic. Yes, we can explore that topic and see where that takes us again. Our neurons fire with built in delays, synaptic gaps that prevent our thoughts from becoming electrical storms of epileptic seizure. In our very cells, DNA's checkpoint proteins pause replication to proofread and mend molecular misprints because without that break, every miswrite might script a tumor. DNA's checkpoint proteins pause replication to proofread and mend molecular misprints because without that break, every miswrite might script a tumor. The question isn't whether we need friction, but which kind, where, and how much we can bear before we pay someone to help us escape it, what we call the friction frontier. The question isn't whether we need friction, but which kind, where, and how much we can bear before we pay someone to help us escape it, what we call the friction frontier. If friction is sometimes a virtue, then we must be surgical about where we apply the brake. If friction is sometimes a virtue, then we must be surgical about where we apply the brake. Our investment instinct is thus twofold: own both the bottleneck and the hack by backing the jailbreakers, say AI. The friction frontier lies in mapping AI's metabolism, finding where silicon speed meets carbon constraint. This is also very interesting. The friction frontier lies in mapping AI's metabolism, finding where silicon speed meets carbon constraint. AI can dream up chip architectures in microseconds, but TSMC's fabs run on geological time. Their extreme ultraviolet lithography crawling through wafers at the pace of physics. AI can generate perfect building blueprints, but concrete still cures at its own cadence. This is beautiful. But concrete still cures at its own cadence. The rate limited steps are hiding in plain sight. Rate limiting. Similar to how someone says that courage is the only rate limiting factor. That's exactly what's happening over here. Friction, real world, concrete still cures at its own cadence. So the curing of concrete, that is a rate limiting step. Hiding in plain sight, rare earth mining that feeds the hunger for GPUs, the electric grid that can be coded into existence. The submarine cables that must be unspooled from a vessel 1 meter at a time. One can be long caterpillars, earth movers, ASMLs, ultraviolet monopoly, or whatever can't be software defined in the cloud, but it's also important to be long the lubricants. The companies building the tools that let AI route around reality's roadblocks, the robotics venture that give AI hands to match its mind. That's also beautiful. It's beautiful. Give AI hands to match its mind. Future fortunes lie at the friction frontier, profiting from what can't be rushed and also what makes rushing possible. In robotics, we see a careful convergence of the need for validated data while staying within the limits of physics. There's a tension between what we want, powerful robots that can handle real-world complexity, and what's practical to build. Collecting robot data is expensive and slow. We wanted to own, and what's practical to build. Collecting robot data is expensive and slow. We wanted to own the bottleneck on real-world data while backing the jailbreaks behind a hack. So we bet on physical intelligence. The company is building a foundation model and operating system platform for improvisational robots that can enter a highly unknown and unstructured environment and perform tasks loosely defined. It's built a proprietary workflow to collect the largest robotics data set in the world, and it's now building flexible physical world models that will challenge our perception of robots unable to handle the most mundane of tasks. Laundry will never be the same again. Laundry will never be the same again. That same imperative to embody intelligence in the physical world leads us from silicon to the friction frontier of the cell. Indeed, AI platforms for protein, small molecule, and drug design are emerging from the thawing ice of the biotech winter, accelerating new drug candidates and eliminating the inefficiencies of clinical trials. All are gaining interest, attention, and capital, but not yet full-fledged FOMO, another anticipated example of our 5 year psychological bias. That same imperative to embody intelligence in the physical world leads us from silicon to the friction frontier of the cell. Indeed, AI platforms for protein, small molecule, and drug design are emerging from the thawing ice of the biotech winter, accelerating new drug candidates and eliminating the inefficiencies of clinical trials. All are gaining interest, attention, and capital, but not yet full fledged FOMO. The real revolution hides in plain sight. Biotech is pivoting from fixing broken. This is amazing. Biotech is pivoting from fixing broken people to upgrading functional ones. Variant finds outlier people with outlier traits and outlier places of the world to target not just medicines but also performance enhancers for anyone. Its addressable market just exploded from patients to everyone who wants to be better. Variant finds outlier people with outlier traits in outlier places of the world. Very interesting. High quality software, home renovations, variant software, high quality software, home improvement, creative intelligence, AI developer, design tool space, variant IT services, venture capital fund. Oh no, we don't know. Variant biotech. Developing life-saving therapies by studying the genes of people with exceptional health-related traits. Human genetic diversity to identify disease resistance and translate their findings into new therapeutics, especially for fibrotic kidney and liver disease. Interesting. New York Times. What does it say? Share revenues with indigenous people who donated their genes. Whoa, I clicked on this. Okay. Oh, yeah, right here. Ethical approach to research, including strong benefit sharing programs with indigenous communities that contribute genetic information. Revenue sharing, equitable access to resulting medicines, and support local organizational research funds. Novo Nordisk to identify new metabolic treatment targets for conditions like obesity and diabetes using data from underrepresented populations. Novel drug targets by working with diverse communities globally. Ethical engagement, innovation, genomics, and drug discovery. Interesting. Okay. Outlier people with outlier traits and outlier places of the world to target not just medicines but also performance enhancers for anyone. Patients to everyone who wants to be better. The industry is shifting from treating the sick to optimizing the well, from one size fits all drugs to N of one personalized therapeutics, from managing decline to engineering longevity. Managing decline to engineering longevity. Biotech's poor. I think I should be noting down all the beautiful things over here. From managing decline to engineering longevity. Biotech's poor public market performance. Negative 23% over 5 years versus S&P's 95 masks a private market truth. We are seeing a Darwinian moment where yesterday's risk may become tomorrow's moats because patience, correctly applied with enough funding, turns time into an asymmetrical advantage. We observe the same convergence on the friction frontier across Luxus companies, icons. Industrial scale microscopes fuse picometer precision with high throughput automation and AI-rich analytics, watching proteins dance in living cells and shrinking years of drug discovery guesswork into months. Impulse spacecrafts, orbital transfer vehicles that accelerate Mars timelines from decades to months, while applied intuition spins digital twin asphalt grids that turn millions of on-road driving miles into an overnight compute sprint. Applied intuition spins digital twin asphalt grids that turn millions of on-road driving miles into overnight compute sprint. Hadrian's robotic foundries attack the meta manufacturing choke point, building the machines that build the machines, while Varda's hypersonic re-entry labs collapse orbital experiment cycles from months to days. Anduril is developing autonomous fighter jets at record speed, while evolutionary scale compresses. Re-entry labs. Autonomous fighter jets at record speed. Evolutionary scale compresses 500 million years of evolution into hours, conjuring a green fluorescent protein that nature hadn't yet found a path to. Friction may be the first villain of physics, but it also offers us a redemption story if we stay focused and listen closely. Crowd consensus and our diverging views. To deviate from consensus, we must know the consensus and how everyone else directs their attention. Below are our views on the daily distraction tape. The headline's better to arb than echo. Minting fresh peaks while investment grade spreads shrink to a mere 80 bps over treasuries. Investors pay over 3x sales for the median name an all-time high. Retail investors poured a record 155 billion into US equities in the first half of this year, while over 850 unprofitable Russell 3000 companies averaged 36% gains. Big tech stocks make up 36% of the entire S&P index, a half-century high, concentrating risk. There's increasingly crowded consensus on public AI names alongside the return of hot meme summer with GoPro, Krispy Kreme, and other darlings of retail speculators in equity euphoria, while Bitcoin hit recent record highs of more than 120,000. Allah's physics teaches us that excess energy must eventually dissipate, and so too must frothy finance. As capital's cost reasserts its gravity, we can foresee a scenario where narratives may shift from growth glitz to maintenance metal. Growth glitz to maintenance metal. Today's record AI capex expenditures on chips, data centers, nuclear reactors, and turbines will succumb to wear and tear due to physical entropy, creating future demand for predictive sensors, software, and robotics for prevention and repair. In private markets, the venture asset class doubled its market share to 22% in the secondary liquidity market. An interesting, non-obvious signal that possibly portends an opening of the IPO market for high demand private companies is that the asset class had the sharpest pricing gains, reaching 78% of NAV. Retail source secondaries surpassed 80 billion, more heft to its new liquidity infrastructure. It all means sophisticated secondary buyers can be patient long-term holders who now underwrite late-stage venture based on company fundamentals rather than exit timing or distressed sellers. We continue to believe that regardless of the IPO market, investing in must-have teams and technologies and markets with oligopolistic industry structure can foment bidding competition that leads to irrational prices to buy our and our founders' stakes. Irrational prices to buy our and our founders' stake. Internationally, Israel has destroyed or degraded the majority of Iran's proxies, existentially threatening its sovereignty. Houthis, Hezbollah, Hamas, and an extraordinary precise decimation in a mere 12 days of Iranian air defenses, with a multi-year setback of its offensive nuclear intentions thanks to a key assist from CENTCOM. The technological superiority of American B-2 stealth bombers. Israel's young warfighter generation will likely be its greatest generation. Lux partners have traveled to Tel Aviv, and we have made 4 core investments in extraordinarily intelligent, talented teams in the past year alone, spanning defense and cyber, relevant not just to Israel but also the United States and the free and democratic world more broadly. Ideological pendulum. Populist right, socialist left, evident in France, in UK, Germany. Military deployments, LA, immigration raids, as well as universities facing massive funding cuts, failing to protect the safety of the students while ensuring both free speech and orderly dissent. Long partnered with the best principal investigators and academic scientific entrepreneurs facing funding cuts and loss of critical talent to offer resources and help continue key experiments. Fielding proposals from some of America's next generation leading scientists, we offer them advice, connections, and if a fit for our funding to launch new companies. Where appropriate, we also facilitated introductions to existing Lux family companies who could recruit them or license their work. Coldplay's high fidelity stadium kiss cam revealed on screen infidelity. Wow, wow, this Coldplay meme pops up. Everything is relevant. Everything is relevant. Everything, culture is relevant. If you're part of the culture, you are relevant. If people are talking about it, you are relevant. Coldplay's high fidelity stadium kiss cam revealed on screen infidelity, becoming a high circus slapstick parable of always on surveillance, always on surveillance, a reminder that terrible judgment can be alchemized into terribly addictive meme gold, and that human creativity can spin personal tragedy into communal comedy. Human creativity can spin personal tragedy into communal comedy. Bro, who was writing this? Always on surveillance, a reminder that terrible judgment can be alchemized into terribly addictive meme gold, and then human creativity can spin personal tragedy into communal comedy. Yet we can see a near future where life becomes ambient and assumed. Life becomes ambient and assumed. Consider long battery wearables that passively capture all audio, glasses that passively record and capture what you see even when you aren't paying attention, and eventually via Osmo. Sensors capturing these smells, chemicals, and molecules you encounter every day. Whoa, Osmo. Olfactory intelligence. I remember way back my buddy was talking about this, like what if you can record taste, like the taste olfactory, digitize map and reproduce scent at scale. Organic compounds using gas chromatography, mass spectrometry. Wow. Paired with advanced machine learning models, including graph neural networks to convert chemical information from scents into digital representations. Sensor map printers reconstruct and emit scents by assembling the identified molecules in precise ratios. Scent teleportation, the ability to digitize and recreate real world smells remotely. Indoor air quality food technology. Large-scale digital mapping of fragrances, bridging molecular analytics with creative formulation and enabling new applications ranging from smart air detectors to custom scent environments and even plant-based food aroma replication. Miniaturizing its sensors for broader commercial and consumer deployment, including potential future diagnostic and fragrance reading devices. Very interesting. Osmo.ai. Signed Osmo. Giving computers a sense of smell. Wow. Giving computers a sense of smell. Vision and hearing have been digitized but not smell, our oldest and deepest sense. Osmo brings together frontier AI and olfactory science to solve this historic challenge. While we are starting with the incredibly complex art of fragrance, our ultimate goal is to improve the health and well-being of human life through smell. Read, map, write, introducing Osmo's AI scent platform. Digital smell has arrived. Are we ready for Stinky Gram? Stinky Gram, nice. Capturing the smells, chemicals, and molecules you encounter every day. Now added a layer of AI revealing insights and hidden connections to make sense of things that evade your attention or recall. And this life-guarding phenomena is not far off. Like earlier debates over social media, the younger digitally native generation will be far more welcoming and comfortable with this new world, while elders fear a further invasion of their already diminished privacy. Far more welcoming and comfortable with this new world, while elders fear of further invasion of their already diminished privacy. Markets, politics, and culture toggle between rewind, and fast forward. Yesterday's messages reskinned for today's nostalgia, today's absurdities served for tomorrow's algorithmic clicks. Yesterday's messages reskinned for today's nostalgia. Today's absurdities served for tomorrow's algorithmic clicks. The only forecast that feels safe, more remix, less middle ground, and a perpetual beta test of our collective focus. What's always missing, and thanks to collective human ambition, will always be absent, is a pause button. What's always missing, and thanks to collective human ambition, will always be absent, is a pause button. The friction frontier in the age of superintelligence, with superhuman intelligence imminent, where does this leave all of us humans? The irony is that the cultural critic can find comfort in their continuity. The irony is that the cultural critic can find comfort in their continuity. The bedside nurse with grace and humanity accentuates the second syllable of health care. The bedside nurse with grace and humanity accentuates the second syllable of healthcare. The blue-collar worker who we all thought would be most disrupted by the march of technology can firmly plant their feet with their finely honed skills and judgment. Meanwhile, the white-collar worker is sweating because they know they are vulnerable, and doubly vulnerable if they are not sweating. If they're not sweating. The shrewdest strategy is going long on both the friction and the lubricant, owning what won't budge and also what might break it loose. What won't budge and what might break it loose. It's investing behind both mortality and medicine. We accept that bodies decay on schedule, and so we invest in healthcare IT that coordinates care, but we are simultaneously long CRISPR's cut and paste potential. Era's genetic cargo delivery that slips medicine past cellular customs, and eGenesis's porcine spare parts grown in spotless labs. We don't fight the fact that organs fail, but we don't dismiss the biohackers engineering kidneys and pig hearts that may soon beat in human chests. We fund their blasphemy against biology's deadlines. Bro. Josh Wolf, tell me who wrote this. We fund their blasphemy against biology's deadlines. We fund their blasphemy against biology's deadlines. Or consider being long both darkness and daylight. Or consider being long both darkness and daylight, accepting that circadian rhythms rule our commerce and our cortisol. Or consider being long both darkness and daylight, accepting that circadian rhythms rule our commerce and our cortisol. Yet we are also long reflect orbitals. How do we know reflect orbitals? Right, they were like, we're studying sunshine, something like that. Audacious mirrors, space-based spotlights that would become sunbeams past the planet's bedtime. Oh, wait, that is interesting. Reflect orbital. So what they are doing is they are making mirrors. They're putting it outside Earth so that if this is Earth and this side is dark, they're gonna take the sun's beam and then beam it back on the dark side of the Earth. Bro, that is crazy. We did come across Reflect Orbital. And they were like, we are selling sunshine, but I didn't realize this is what they're doing. Sunlight on demand. Bro, this is crazy. Reflect Orbital is delivering sunlight by building a constellation of in-space mirrors. Oh my god, the sun is a huge fusion reactor that supports all life on Earth. The sun's light contains 24 trillion times more energy than humanity uses today. It is an unending source of energy. Reflect captures that sunlight and brings it down to Earth using mirrors and space. powering a solar future and lighting our world. Bro, what happens to the night? So, what is exactly happening after the sun has set? What? This is crazy. This is crazy. This is crazy. After the sun has set. This is crazy. We sell sunlight after dark. Excited to announce a series led by Lux Capital. We're going to miss our incredible interns. The talented group has been hard at work bringing big ideas to life here at Reflect. We're currently looking for our next interns for fall 25, spring 26, summer 26. Interns on our current cohort have designed hardware that is launching on our first mission. If you're ready to be given ownership and work on novel space technology, we'd love to hear from you. Monocle. The aerospace startup making sci-fi a reality. Ben Novak with the world on his shoulders. This is really cool. Oh, okay. I remember how I found this. I found this through Ty. So Ty is a good friend. Ty is leading the podcast called Relentless, and he interviewed Reflect. But what I don't know is that if if you're saying sunlight on demand, if you are sending like in the middle of the night, you're sending one beam of sunlight to this one solar panel, how does that affect? Is that messing up? Does that mean that means you cannot just send one beam of light, right? Like it's gonna light up the entire area. So are you saying that like it's not like a laser? Is it going to be like a laser that you only see this one beam of light and everything else remains dark, or we will not have darkness because there's going to be so much light? There's a boom around building real things. Oh, DeWall. We know DeWall. Is it Julia DeWall? The location of many of these companies is no accident. There's always been so much innovation on the West Coast. After so many years of software startups, there's a boom around building real things. The location of many of these companies is no accident. There's always been so much innovation on the West Coast. Not every idea taken from sci-fi novel will work, but there's smart money betting that Reflect Orbital can pull it off. With the potential for a considerable return on investment too, the founders expect public support for the solar spotlight, even if that might partly be tech bro swagger. If you zoom out and look at it with a bit of perspective, this is just so cool. Every AI-powered Google search uses 10 times the energy of a traditional search and response. Its parent company Alphabet, alongside Amazon and Meta, have pledged to support efforts to triple nuclear power production by 2050. Microsoft is resurrecting 3 Mile Island, a Pennsylvania nuclear plant infamous for a 79 meltdown. There are entrepreneurs across North America working on small, scalable. I just want to see how 3 Mile Island looks like, because I'm guessing this will keep coming up again and again. This is 3 Mile Island. Oh, 3 Mile Island is a tree like 3 miles of island. Okay. Meltdown. Interesting. There are entrepreneurs across North America working on small scalable nuclear reactors, such as the Bill Gates backed TerraPower, which plans to be running in Wyoming by 2030. Elsewhere in the Seattle area, startup Helion is working on the world's first fusion power plant. Let's see if we can do this. Give me quick summary of all the companies, startups mentioned on this page. Let's see. One of the many West Coast enterprises exploring new power generation schemes. Nice, nice. Keep going. Exploring new power generation schemes as big tech pledges to stay true to its commitment to net zero emissions. Data centers have been popping up along the hydropower rich Columbia River Basin, but the current grid network is insufficient, says Julia DeWall. Yes, Julia DeWall and Taurus. Julia DeWall is the partner of Dan Romero. Very interesting. Los Angeles based angel investor and co founder of micro reactor startup Antares. Forecasted energy demand is a step function increase in growth, largely driven by AI. Forecasted energy demand is step function increase. West Coast, West Coast. Come to me. Come to the west. Move to the west. Move to west. Move to west. One block away, SpaceX original headquarters in the tip of its first successfully recovered Falcon 9 booster can be seen peeking out of among the warehouses. SpaceX from California to Texas in 24, but talent remains clustered in Hawthorne. It's very easy to get things built with machinists around every corner. If you need the perfect laser weld, the guy who did it for the SpaceX and NASA missions is here. Nobody can do it, and the pioneering commercial SpaceX space company and its monument put on permanent display by Musk in 2016 is a visible reminder that proof of concept is vital in this industry if you want to be taken seriously. The clock is ticking on Reflect Orbital's deadline to load up a rocket and deploy its first sail in the spring of 2016. The commercial space industry has become astoundingly cheap by satellite launching standards, just 6,500 per kilogram, or 8 times cheaper than it was on NASA's now retired space shuttles. And it's pretty much like Uber. So we did a podcast with wow, CEO Warda, CEO Warda, CEO Warda. I forgot his name. CEO Warda Space Industries, and he was talking about how it has become similar to Uber. You can literally like book, similar to how you book an Uber. You can book your slot on the next SpaceX launch, presenting an opportunity for space startups such as Reflect Orbital that want to get their projects off the ground, deploy 100 satellites per rocket launch, and reap what it believes could be billions of dollars in revenue. The company is banking on the cost of joining such launches continuing to decline. It is currently fine-tuning its design in a bid to get its satellite production cost down from $2 million to less than 100,000 per unit. Where the revenue will come from is still uncertain, but Reflect Orbital has its theories. Municipalities seeking to save on street lighting, those engaged in search and rescue operations, construction firms operating in remote areas that want to extend the working day, and even Arctic villages hoping to make winters more bearable. Bringing light to Russia's far north was one of the municipalities seeking to save on street lighting, those engaged in search and rescue operations, construction firms. That would be kind of crazy. Like imagine like you can be like you will have an app of Reflect Orbital, and you're like, hey, send me some light over here, and then there's a mirror way above Earth, and that's just like gee, and then boop. All right, that would be really cool. That would be really cool. It's just like you are making a decision on your phone, on your app, tuk tuk tuk, and then there's like a massive mirror outside the Earth that is slowly moving, and then boom, there's a beam of light on Earth. Engage in search and rescue operations, construction firms operating in remote areas that want to extend the working day, and even Arctic villages hoping to make winters more bearable, bringing light to Russia's far north was one of those. Interesting. So we got Reflect, we got Sequoia, we got Lux Capital, SpaceX, NASA. We got this Znamya, Russian space experiment. that produced a 5 kilometer wide moonlight strength beam over Europe. Russian space experiment. Znamya. Znamya. Driving surging electricity demand via AI cloud and backing nuclear expansion. TerraPower. Helium. Fusion energy startup developing what it claims to be the first fusion power plant. Okay, okay. We'll close this, and I just want a bigger screen. Tell me. There's so much interesting stuff happening. Crazy. Wow, here it is. Here it is. Russia's far north. Crafted 2-line tweet about whoa. We should write this wild thing called Znamya, a huge space mirror to light up the polar night. Let's actually tweet this. This is really cool. We should write this wild thing called Znamya, a huge space mirror to light up a giant mirror in space shining light on Arctic towns. We should write this wild thing called Znamya, a giant mirror in space shining sunlight on Arctic towns. We should write this wild thing called Znamya, a giant mirror in space shining sunlight on Arctic towns. Try this one thing called Znamya. Join mirror in space. Join space mirror. To light up the Arctic towns. We should try this wild thing called Znamya, a giant space. Oh, a giant space mirror. To light up a giant space mirror to light up the reflects sunlight onto it specifically to bring light to rushes far north. A giant space mirror to light up the far north towns. Towns in the far north. Towns in far north. Arctic towns. Improve living and working conditions during the dark winter months, eliminating areas enveloped in darkness and thus potentially boosting productivity, supporting rescue operations, and reducing energy costs for lighting and heating. We should try this wild thing in 90s call. We should try this wild thing in the 90s called Znamya, a giant space mirror to light up the Arctic towns. The mirrors known as cirrus hills would be unfolded in orbit and directed to reflect sunlight onto large swaths of land on Earth, creating a spot of light. If that could cover tens of miles, and practice Omnia to succeeded briefly in casting 5 kilometer wide beam of light as bright as the full moon onto a stretch of Europe for several hours. However, further tests such as Znamya 2.5 failed due to technical issues like the mirror ripping on deployment. The ultimate vision included launching even larger satellites to continuously eliminate Russian cities and villages, making winters more bearable and allowing round-the-clock work in remote areas. Goal was to make the dark winters months more bearable. Goal was to make Russia tried this wild thing in the 90s called Znamya, a giant space mirror to light up the Arctic towns. Goal was to make the dark winter months more bearable and allow for round the clock work in remote areas. Russia tried this wild thing in the 90s called Znamya, a giant space mirror to light up the Arctic towns. Goal was to make the dark winter months more bearable and allow for round the clock work in remote areas. The project also had broad economic and social ambitions, proposing that such an artificial elimination could aid agriculture, industrial operations, law enforcement, and disaster response during times traditionally limited by darkness. Although Znamya's experiment were short-lived and the program was eventually discontinued, the idea of conquering Arctic darkness remains symbolically tied to Russian identity, aspirations, and mastering the challenges of their vast northern territories. Objections include environmental concerns about light pollution, disruptions to natural rhythm. Subsequent proposals to bring artificial light to outer regions have been made, but none have matched the audacity. Or scope. Wow. Very interesting. Very interesting. Russia tried this wild thing in the 90s called Znamya, a giant space mirror to reflect to light up the Arctic towns. Goal was to make the dark winter months more bearable and allow for around the clock work in remote areas. Obsessed with energy, 29-year-old Cape Cod born has explored the ideas such as jamming the oceans to harness the tides, flattening mountains with gravity batteries, and even latching onto the moon with a vast cable. In high school, he says he built a kind of fusion reactor as a science project. Launched thousands of satellites into space equipped with mirrors that can reflect sunlight to Earth. By 2030, the company expects to have enough satellites to orbit solar farms with 200 watts of energy per square meter, equivalent to the sun at dawn and dusk. During the evening hours of peak consumer demand, it also hosts a cell illumination to anyone who fancies an extra hit of sunlight, from concert and festival promoters to remote construction sites. Russia tried this wild thing in the 90s called Znamya's giant space mirror to light up the Arctic towns. Goal was to make the dark winter months more bearable and allow for around the clock work in remote areas soon. Okay, that was a good post. No, we don't keep doing that. We want to keep using Perplexity to make tweets, make nice tweets. All right, this was good. This was actually very interesting. Very interesting. Let's go back to the thing we were into. Setting sunshine after sunshine after sunset to cities and solar farms willing to pay for one more hour productivity and one more degree of warmth and energy. The bet isn't on conquering Earth's rotation, it's on profiting from both its spin and the schemes to transcend it. In this upcoming age of AI superintelligence, what becomes of venture capitalists themselves? Here, the ghost of Arthur Schopenhauer has hovered over Lux partner meetings for years and continues to inform us. Talent hits a target no one else can hit. Genius hits a target no one else can see. Talent hits a target no one else can hit. Genius hits a target no one else can see. Lux has made its rep and raison d'etre, reason to be, on that invisible arc, finding and funding founders with arrogance of the highest order, believing before others understands, staking the outcast idea far before the analyst memo. Staking the outcast idea far before the analyst memo. Here, the ghost of Arthur Schopenhauer has hovered over Lux partner meetings for years and continues to inform us. Talent hits a target no one else can hit. Genius hits a target no one else can see. Lux has made its rep and raison d'etre on that invisible arc, finding and funding founders with arrogance of the highest order, believing before others understands, taking the outcast idea far before the analyst memo. Belief precedes understanding, capital chases conviction. Belief precedes understanding. Belief precedes understanding, capital chases conviction. While others might need proof, Schopenhauer's ghost whispers possibility. So we focus where he does on those founders inventing futures still invisible to the root pattern recognition crowd. Belief precedes understanding. This is beautiful. This is beautiful. I think when I think about this, again, I was talking to someone was asking me about what do you do and stuff, and I have a hard time saying what do I do, because I'm like, I have a very general idea that we are doing something interesting. What I'm chasing is flow. What I'm chasing is, I don't even know how to say it. I think what we are doing is the right thing. We are constantly moving in the right direction. I think all the 1% improvement that we are making, I think everything is moving in the right direction. I don't know where we are going, but the thesis is forming slowly. The thesis is forming slowly, and what's important is to like constantly create an offer and have contact with reality. So last night, what we did is, I was just walking around the beach, and I'm like, okay, I have an idea. The YC Twitter page is basically the best thing for everybody, anybody who's in sales. Like if you have the offer created, if you have a strong offer of what you want to sell, then YC Twitter page is the perfect thing to do, the profile page, because you just literally, they have retweeted every high signal startup that they know. And especially why they're good is because these are all really smart people who are at their very early stage. So at this point, it's going to be very easy for you to close deals with them if you are a good partner. They are not someone big who's going to be slow and who you have to convince, and who, if you mess it up, it's going to, you might not be able to work together, whatever. These are startups who will move fast, who are really smart people at their early stages, so they are looking for strong partners. So that was very interesting. I sent I was with my buddy, and then I sent all the pictures, and then I was with my buddy, I was having dinner, and then I actually started getting a couple of responses, and one guy's like, give me an example. And I'm like, okay, I'm in this spot, I have a really good energy, I'm having a really good conversation with my buddy right now, so let me just record a video. So I record a quick 3-minute video and I share it to him, and that was with some good energy and like, people around and good lights around. So I'm like, okay, send. And I just like the vibe. I think we are just moving in the right direction, where I'm sharing these ideas, where we are moving in the right direction. We don't know what the right direction is, but I'm chasing what comes to my mind. I'm chasing this creative mind, that I'm letting my creative mind do whatever it thinks needs to be done. Like right now, pushing the limits of Perplexity is something that is very interesting. If an idea pops in my mind, I have to use Perplexity, because why are we using agentic browser? Why are we using agentic browser if not for its interesting capabilities, And we want to find more creative use cases, not just add eggs to your grocery cart, add stuff to your grocery cart on Instacart, or like book airline tickets or book hotel reservations and stuff. That is kind of boring. Everybody says that. We want to find more interesting use cases over here. I want to keep making this a creative outlet right over here. Yeah, it's a mix of tech and art. All right. Lux has made its rep and raison d'etre on that visible arc finding, and I actually like to say French, because it's kind of a flex. Finding and funding founders with arrogance of the highest order, believing before others understand, taking the outcast idea far before the analyst memo. Belief precedes understanding, capital chases conviction, where others might need proof. Schopenhauer's ghost whispers possibility. So we can belief precedes, so this was the point I was talking about. Belief precedes understanding. I don't understand. So the conversation I was having today, and this guy was asking a lot of questions, I'm like, I don't understand what I'm doing, but I think I have the belief. What we are doing is we are running a bunch of experiments. We are running a bunch of creative experiments, how tech meets art, stuff like that. So when someone asks me, what do you do? I think I like to say creator, because that's the easiest way right now for me to describe what I'm doing. Capital chases conviction, where others might need proof. Schopenhauer's ghost whispers possibility. So we focus where he does on those founders inventing futures still invisible to the rote pattern recognition crowd. Also, one thing I've just realized is that there's a lot of interesting content out there. There's a lot of interesting content out there in like old books and stuff, but that is boring. What people would rather want to do is that if they trust this one guy, and if they trust his taste, let's say people trust me and my taste, then they would, instead of themselves coming and reading this article, they would want to hear me read this article and what do I think from my perspective of what makes sense. And yeah, then the work I have to do is like actually craft this and package this, which right now I'm not investing time in, but maybe in future I will start investing time. Right now that entire editing thing doesn't really make sense to me, but that is where Perplexity can really help me, because I want to start packaging things. I want to start packaging these ideas, but right now the goal is working on my idea, working on my craft. Packaging can come a little bit later, but right now for me it's really important just to keep building momentum for working on the craft. And that working on the craft right now is giving me a lot of energy, so that is good. But slowly I understand that the more we need to keep the cycle going of creation, packaging, selling, getting feedback, getting market feedback, then again, creation, packaging, selling, getting market feedback. And this cycle needs to keep going. Arrogance of highest order, believing before others understand, taking the outcast idea before the analyst memo. Belief precedes understanding, capital Jesus conviction where others might need proof. Schopenhauer's ghost whispers possibility. So we focus where he does on those founders inventing futures invisible to the rote pattern recognition crowd. Also conversation I'm having with a lot of people right now is just like fear of the unknown. The world is naturally uncertain. Nobody knows what's going to happen. Nobody knows how your day is going to look like. But the problem is because at your work, the company has these quality targets and companies create a quality plan. And your manager is like, oh, yeah, in 2 months, if you work properly on this project, then I will promote you. They have created an artificial certainty for you. And suddenly, everything that is not certain, you are afraid of that because your life has been very certain. You know that, okay, if I work over here, I'm going to get a paycheck and blah, blah, blah. So now you start thinking that, oh, that is scary. But you have to realize that someone has created a structure for you where they have created artificial certainty. Even they don't know what is happening. And yeah, what's important is to realize that the entire world is inherently uncertain and you need to be okay. You need to be okay with having a lot of uncertainty. One thing I'm also starting to do a lot in general is just like, if like once we have this idea, like we can sit at home and read stuff, but I don't want to just be a person who's sitting at home and reading things. I also want to go out in the world and have experiences and bring those experiences back into my work. And I think this is really interesting because because I'm naturally that person who wants to go out, but I also am a person who wants to be in flow state over here. So I think this entire yin and yang makes a lot of sense to me, where we sit at home, we get in flow state, we go deep into learning about things, studying about things, then we go out in the nature, we go on walks, we synthesize all the ideas that we learn, we have random serendipitous experiences. And like today, I just randomly went to this TV diner and they had a bunch of these old aesthetic TVs and radios with old stuff playing on them, and that was so beautiful. That was so beautiful, very aesthetic. We want more aesthetics. We want more aesthetics around us. Where others might need proof, Schopenhauer's ghost whispers possibility. So we focus where he does. And yeah, when I say aesthetics, I'm also working with Heavy Pulp, which is a Twitter account. They have a lot of beautiful stuff going on. And now for my thumbnails, I just want to make my thumbnails aesthetic. So I'm just going to put random, beautiful, aesthetic stuff on there. My titles are going to be boring, but my thumbnails have to be aesthetic. We want to create beauty. This entire channel this entire medium, this entire space that we have created is like an art museum. Okay. Finally, we need to end. So we focus where he does on those founders inventing futures still invisible to the rote pattern recognition crowd. Even in the age of superintelligence, the deepest fortunes are made by picking sides in the ancient wars of physics, but by funding both the immovable object and the unstoppable force, turning the impossible into the inevitable. In a universe governed by entropy and ingenuity in equal measure, winning portfolios profit not from friction's elimination, but from humanity's eternal negotiation with the friction frontier. In a world where everyone shouts at once, we invest in the few special voices that still whisper decades ahead. Fiat Lux. They did mention something about attention, but I'm not sure. They did mention something about attention, that they are investing in attention. So it would be interesting to see how they think about the difference between, in a world where everyone shouts at once, we invest in the few special voices that still whisper decades ahead. So what do they mean by this long-term thinking versus the attention? Yeah, right here. Attention is also the most important. A high-velocity slipstream of science, markets, and geopolitics now batters even the most stoic students of history. Again, beautiful. Einstein's presumed chagrin. Chagrin, I keep forgetting what chagrin means. Chagrin means weakness, chagrin. Chagrin meaning distress, embarrassment, humiliation. Humiliated, okay. Attention is also the most important resource for AI. Coincidentally, was a founder of Lux family company Sakana AI who titled the famous "Attention is all you need." AI is counterproof to Einstein. Time doesn't exist since everything seems to be happening at once. Megas and minnows, craftsmen and charlatans, technicians and tourists alike are all accelerating their activity even as they abjectly abbreviate their attention. We will first focus on the heady headlines before swirling and zooming our lens toward the quieter periphery where fresh opportunity awaits for those with practiced patience. History suggests euphoric investors will overspend AI capex. Smart money may own both sides, equity in the walled cathedrals and positions in the open bazaar. Smart money may own both sides, equity in the walled cathedrals and positions in the open bazaar. Beautiful. All I want to do is I want to be with my boys who are all into VC and tech. I want to say something like this: smart money will own both sides, equity in the walled cathedrals and positions in the open bazaar. And